What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Shady here, and today we're going to be diving right into Young, Rich, and African. We're going to be diving into this season, and this season, I'm not gonna lie, it was like the perfect mix of petty, shady, and like slightly serious. Of course, we're gonna start with the cast. We have Nadia, Annie, Zari, who in the very first episode she actually got married, so her husband as well, Shakib. Then we have Diamond, DJ Naked, Swanky, Kefilwe, who I believe they call Kefi for short, so that's what I'm going to refer to her as. Annie, who's also new to the group, and then also Lewis, who was introduced in the previous season before this one. So yeah, I am just going to pretty much do what I did when I was speaking about Dubai Bling. If you guys want to check out that, I'll link it in the corner here for you, but I'm pretty much just going to go into some of the main topics that I picked out from the whole season, because if we go episode by episode, it's just going to be kind of all over the place, and we're probably going to be here forever. First off, we got Zari and Shakib's wedding. In the very first episode, they're all meeting up. We see that Annie shows up. She already kind of has issues with Nadia and a few other people in the group. Lewis also shows up, but we're going to talk about that in a minute because he has some issues with Fantana. And yeah, there's just a lot going on already, because Zari even bothered to invite some of them, because some of them don't necessarily have the best relationship with her. For example, her and Annie, they definitely have a very complicated relationship. She invites everyone. Everyone shows up except for Diamond. He claims that he wasn't invited, but yeah, Diamond is her ex-boyfriend slash baby daddy. And we find out that Shakib is quite a few years younger than Zari, okay? Quite a few. Annie makes this comment about him being like super young, and she says this as she's sitting right behind Zari's sons. And she decides to take that moment to also say something to Nadia, who was sitting next to her, and we hear her call Nadia a witch. And also fake, because she didn't take up for Annie when her and Swanky were arguing or something like that. And I'm just like, girl, what? You take this moment to talk about this. So yeah, it was kind of embarrassing. Nadia was like, girl, this is not the time or the place. So it was very interesting after all of that, after all the comments that Annie had made, that she went up and spoke to Zari and Shakib and was like, you know, congratulations, all that good stuff. And she wished them the best, but it was like, girl, you don't even like this woman. But okay, you know, it just was giving fake. Let's move on to Lewis and Fantana. So they definitely had some unresolved sexual tension in the last season. Lewis had basically came over to Fantana, shared that he had a crush on her, but I guess she was saying that he was a little too soft for her and she wanted bad boys, is what he said. So she ended up being more interested in Diamond. But the thing is, she's just a part of Diamond's roster of women, but everyone else seems to be making it into a big deal, but she seems to be kind of cool with it. So I don't know. Lewis and Fantana eventually get into an argument, and everyone could tell they probably just need to literally bang it out, because it was like, y'all clearly like each other. But Fantana, she's just like, you know, I wish he had kind of fought for me a little bit. Like, how am I supposed to know he like was serious about his feelings for me if he doesn't try to like fight for me and take me away from Diamond? I'm like, girl, first of all, you're not really with Diamond. You're one of his many women, okay? Let's get that straight. And number two, I don't understand why women don't just tell men what they want. You just expect him to read your mind. It gets frustrating. Men are very simple, okay? They mean what they say and they say what they mean usually. Unless they're just trying to get some cheeks. Okay, if that's the case, then yeah, they would say anything and everything to get into your pants. But okay, if they're very serious about like kind of being with you, they're pretty simple. But when it comes to women, I feel like we tend to complicate things a little too much, and it's just like, how are they supposed to read your mind? How is he supposed to know like you were actually interested, but you just wanted him to do a little bit more? So Nadia and Annie, their drama kind of continues the entire season, from the first episode where Annie calls her a witch and fake to the very end, and it still isn't resolved even at the end. But we see that everybody in the group is trying to get them to just like talk to each other, but it wasn't working out well. It really comes to a head when DJ Naked tries to I guess, lure everybody to this event. Under false pretenses, he tried to make it seem like it was his party, but it was actually Annie's. And now Nadia is just like, you know, why is everybody so kumbaya with Annie? Because Annie, she was popping off on everybody, but made it seem like it was everybody else's fault. So eventually when she just decides to disappear and go back home, she decides to send this message to say, hey, I was just going through a lot. But she doesn't really say what it was exactly, but I was just going through a lot. And I think my actions kind of reflected that. So I just want to apologize. But Nadia responds and she's just like, girl, everybody's going through things. Like, that's not really a good excuse. And I kind of have to agree. I feel like everybody's responsible for the things they say and the way they act, even if they're going through things. I understand you more, but at the same time, I still have to hold you accountable. So Nadia and I think we're kind of the same in that way, because I was like, yeah, I can't deal with fakeness, because everybody was kind of going behind Annie's back talking about how Annie is just, you know, doing the most and you don't know what's going on with her, but like she need to chill. But Nadia was kind of the only one in that moment who was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna just sit down and be like, oh, everything is great, awesome, we're all friends again. Like, no, we're not. So in that moment, you could see her at that party getting really like hyped up, and she started yelling, and after that she apologized to everybody at her event on the beach. But yeah, it was like, girl, I relate. I relate so heavily right now. I think a lot of people, they like to be fake, and I feel like just me in my spirit, I would not be able to be settled if I know we have not dealt with our issues. So Shakib and Diamond, let's talk about their conflict. So Zari, I think, is kind of in her little la la land a little bit with this one, because she keeps trying to make it seem like nothing's going on. Like Shakib is just seeing things and making things up in his head. He's just being insecure. But at the same time, it's just like, Zari, looking at your history, I believe what Shakib is saying. Shakib was basically saying, when you're around Diamond, it seems like y'all get very touchy-feely with each other. I tried to ignore it, but at the same time, it looks weird. And I have to agree with him, it does look weird, okay? Yes, you guys are still co-parenting, you know, you got your 2 kids, but you have to have respect for your husband. And Zari was kind of irritating me this entire season with that, because she kept trying to make it seem like it was just in his head. But it's like, girl, you have literally gone back to Diamond after almost all of these little flings and relationships that you've had. So it's kind of not in his mind. It is pretty much what he's seeing and what he's feeling, that you might be going back to Diamond. Yeah, it is a little bit of insecurity, but at the same time, you're not helping. I think it just kind of matches up with what tends to happen when it comes to people that have kids. When they go into another relationship, it's like, how do I know for sure you're not still dealing with this person that you had kids with? I just think it's a little delusional for Zari to think like, oh, you should just be okay with us and our relationship. Like, don't even think about Diamond. It's kind of hard for him to not think about Diamond when you won't set a boundary. So Swanky brings in Kefi, right? And Kefi eventually has issues with Zari, because I guess Zari felt as though she was stealing her spotlight, because Kefi just walked into the wedding reception in the middle of everything and everyone was just staring at her and the attention was on her. But Kefi was like, I mean, okay, I was late, sorry. At the same time, I understood where Zari was coming from in that moment, but things get really petty when you could see that Kefi is going through a divorce right now, and Zari, she has this strange way of trying to come across as though like she actually cares for you, but then at the same time throws shade. And it's just like, girl, you don't even know Kefi like that yet. Kefi and Zari, they end up on this safari together. Zari keeps pushing this idea of Kefi's marriage being fake, or being like a social media marriage or wedding or something. Kefi's just like, for a moment I thought you actually were trying to connect with me, but now I realize you're just a snake. And I kind of have to agree with Kefi. She does give off snake vibes. At the end, Kefi ends up throwing a drink at Zari, and I'm like, how did we get here? Keffi just strikes me as someone, she'd just be okay with just sitting there enjoying her time. But yeah, I just did not see that reaction coming. Swanky also introduced Annie to the group. He and Annie are both friends with Annie. She started talking to Kayleigh and DJ Naked at an event. And I think she was honestly digging a little too deep too fast, because she started asking them questions about like when they were gonna get married. Do they want marriage? Why is DJ Naked wasting time? Kayleigh, of course, started like feeding into it because she does want to get married as well. But in DJ Naked's mind, he's like, I just had you move into my house. I thought that's what you wanted. I thought you were happy, but now you're telling me like, oh no, you want more, like you want marriage. And it's just kind of like, I mean, yeah, that's the natural progression of things, DJ Naked. Kayleigh, she also expresses to Lewis that she feels a ways and wants to definitely look into marriage, but DJ Naked anyway keeps shutting her out. And now we see that Kayleigh was also speaking to Zari about possibly moving out and getting her own place. At one point, they have a conversation and you could see that DJ Naked feels a way about Kayleigh running around telling everybody what she was gonna do, but she never actually expressed this to him. And I was like, I kind of believe him that she never really spoke about it, because that would be kind of weird to be like, yeah, I'm leaving you, I'm gonna find my own place. But she kind of backtracked a little bit when he approached her on it and was like, I just wanted to find a property. I told you a while ago that I wanted to find a property that we could like invest in. But he was like, yeah, that's what you said to me, but you never said anything about moving out. They do get engaged, but I'm hoping and praying that it wasn't because he felt forced to do it and he wanted to do it all along. Now, Diamond and Fantana, to be honest, there wasn't really much to talk about. It seems as though, like I said earlier, that they're just okay with what each other wants to do. They're pretty much just friends with benefits at this point. Good with them if they both agree and were like consenting adults, they could do whatever they want to do. But one thing that was kind of interesting was that they had a little bit of a pregnancy scare. And Diamond, you could see, really wanted a child, and I was getting kind of irritated with him that he wanted a child so bad, but at the same time didn't really want to commit to Fantana. And I'm just like, but you want a child with her though? Like, it's giving toxic. Yeah. Now, Annie is at odds with everyone, and we also find out that she had suffered a miscarriage, which was what she was talking about earlier, about going through a lot of things that kind of made her act up. But you could see that Nadia wasn't really having it, because Nadia was also going through her own issues. She just lost the love of her life not too long ago, and you know, was still dealing with the trauma and emotion of that. So we at the end see that Zari comes to meet up with Annie to make sure she was good, and they work through their little spat, sort of. She apologized for the whole comments at her wedding. Swanky and her work out their issues because they had originally fought over some voice note. But after that, everyone seemed to be in a good place with Annie except for Nadia. But Annie and Lewis. Annie had mentioned something about using a surrogate for her child, and she decided to do that through surrogacy. And Lewis was like, oh, okay. Which kind of piques his interest, because that's all he was talking about in his first season, that he wanted to have a child because he didn't have a connection to his family anymore. They kind of excommunicated him. He basically has no family. So he wanted to have a child really badly. So I think at one point he even asked Zari if she could give him an egg or something like that for a surrogacy pregnancy. Zari was like, wait, what? You know, so it was kind of bizarre. We see that Lewis kind of picks up on that surrogacy story with Annie, and he feels as though he has a connection with her because of that. But we also see that Lewis is kind of just terrified of women. I don't really fully understand it, but Shakib picked up on it. He was like, why do you need to have this whole setup where you have women coming in to basically audition to become your baby mama or surrogate or egg donor? I don't know. He had these women come in to pretty much kind of do interviews, and he had Shakib and Annie there. But Shakib was a little bit more understanding, because it really just came off to him that he was just scared of wanting to date women and just fall in love and just have a kid the natural way instead of doing a surrogate and all this stuff. After a while, Annie comes in, and you could see she's taking this like personal. Like, she feels as though that he's just parading around women. And she also brought up that she was struggling to have a child and that surrogacy was her last resort. So it definitely irritated her. But I think her escalation of the situation was just overdone. And even when Lewis tried to apologize at Nadia's beach event, things went left again, and Swanky also got into things, and I didn't understand why he was involved. I understand that Annie's your friend, you're trying to protect her and speak up for her, but at the same time it's like, that's their issue. You weren't even there, Swanky. You don't know what happened, so just shut up. So that's the only thing I don't really appreciate when it comes to Swanky, is that he turns up at the strangest moments. At Swanky's event, Lewis and Annie finally come to terms with their issue and they squash their beef, but that's only because Lewis was like really trying to extend like a deep, heartfelt apology, and Annie finally accepted it. But at the end of it all, I was like, it really wasn't that deep to begin with. I understood her feelings at the beach event. She was just like, yeah, don't talk to me, don't ever talk to me again. And I was like, did that really warrant that response? It was too much. But that was pretty much it for this season. You guys can let me know your thoughts on all of this drama down below, and also what your thoughts were for past seasons. You can let me know, but I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.